What is up, people of YouTube? Welcome to Another Day in Paradise. For those of you guys who are new, my name is Canon McCarty, and today we are going to be talking about the Canon EOS R6, and more specifically, its use in video production. Now, this has been a hot topic. I'm not trying to make a pun. That would just be my default word, because everybody has brought up overheating on this camera. And honestly, I haven't had one experience with that. Who knows, maybe in the studio here I'll have to eat those words and it'll show me an overheat indicator, but honestly, I've been shooting with this in the Florida heat, 95 degrees, 90% humidity, and rain, and I've been able to test all of this because, you know, it's sunny and warm in the mornings and then rainy in the afternoons. That being said, I have worked one paid gig and I've just been using this extensively just to learn everything I can about this camera, and I've not had it overheat once. Yes, I am mindful and I turn off the camera in between takes. I do that. And I'm sure maybe I'll run into an issue if I forget to turn off the camera, but generally I'm pretty good at that. The reliability when it comes to overheating for my personal needs and for pretty much anybody who shoots YouTube videos like this and doesn't shoot long form content is going to be more than happy with this camera. But with all that being said, I wanted to talk about video quality and some of the likes and dislikes I have with this camera for practical use. One of the big likes, let's start with that, is its low light performance. I shot a little sequence that I'll play for you, like 20 seconds, just to show some of the low light capabilities. So I'm gonna play that for you right now. Now that first shot at 25,600 ISO, that's usable. That is, honestly, for my content and for YouTube and for anything where you have difficult lighting like that, that is definitely usable. And it's definitely not going to be anywhere near the A7S III's quality that I am going to be testing soon, but it's better than the A7 III, which I had before, and it's very usable, and I really think it did a great job with low light performance. Now, that being said, where I do find this camera suffering is in dynamic range. For the most part, I get good, pleasing images, but in high contrast scenarios where you have a lot you want to capture in the shadows with super bright highlights, you are going to notice some clipping. Like, you are going to have to sacrifice those highlights, which you wouldn't have to do if it had better dynamic range. So dynamic range, it's usable. It's great. It's better than, honestly, a lot of cameras with these features, with 10-bit, with this color, with the 4K 60. It's fantastic. And it does great at hybrid shooting, which is the only reason I would get this camera is if you're a hybrid shooter, because there's a ton of other video focused cameras out there. It has that Canon color science, which, coming from Sony, I used to just say color science doesn't matter, but honestly, I've had this camera for a week. I was able to pick it up, get shots, color grade it with minimal effort, and it just looks so pleasing, so good, and it has so much flexibility that I just did not have with my A7 III, my A7R4, my A7R III, my A7S II. That list goes on, my Panasonic GH5. GH5 was good. It's just took a lot more love. The C-Log in this just grades so easily, and I love it. So Canon color science, that has been a real thing. Now, this isn't going to be my super in-depth review, thus why I titled it what this specifically covers, but I'm trying to use it as much as possible. So I thought, what can I film that will just kind of push it in terms of, you know, production work and stuff. And I thought maybe try and make chocolate covered strawberries, I guess. And honestly, a lot harder to film myself doing that than I thought. And all I could think to myself was,
I suck.
Yeah, it just didn't go great, but you know, you gotta practice, you gotta figure out all the quirks about this camera and all that jazz, and once again, filming yourself and trying to add movement to that is just difficult. Obviously, if I was doing client work, I wouldn't be filming myself and trying to add motion with a slider and just all that headache. But the footage ends up looking really good. This camera is just super quick to figure out. Like I've mentioned a couple times, I've had this camera for a week. I have never used a Canon camera, but I figured this out so quick. And the menu systems being convenient, I used to say, that doesn't matter, it matters what you can get with it. Well, being able to enjoy your experience, being able to navigate that menu system quickly, being able to understand it so thoroughly in such a short amount of time is valuable, and I value that in this camera, and I value what Canon's done with it. Now, I haven't played with the Sony a7S III's new menu system, and I will do a video on that if I find that that is better than the Canon's, but right now, this has been the best experience I've had with the camera. Now, we're at the 10-minute mark, and I'm not seeing any overheating signs, but obviously that's not super long content. But I've shot clips longer than this and more burst clips, still no overheating, which has just been a huge topic with people, and it made me really nervous about getting this camera, but I've had no issues. Me and Chelsea have started a Disney vlog, and that involves taking burst clips out in the sun, and I haven't had any issues with that at all. And I'm on the new set that we're working on, and it looks pretty cool. I'm excited about that. But I was nervous about this camera not being reliable, but it has been. It has been fantastic. I'm trying not to sound like a Canon fanboy because this is my first Canon camera, and I had Sony, and I've been to the B Alpha events. I'm still a Sony Pro member. I still love the Sony cameras. I still work with them all the time. But honestly, this experience has been amazing. I'm super blown away by this camera, and I think people let that overheating get out of hand. This camera is more than enough for short form video content for the hybrid shooters. Now, I got a little off topic, but if I circle back, a lot of people said that if you do productions where you're framing and stuff like that, that contributes to the overheating. That made me a little nervous, but I spent a long time framing and composing those strawberry shots so I could add motion, which once again, super hard if you're shooting solo. And I spent 3 hours doing that, and the camera never overheated on me. So once again, blown out of proportion. Maybe Canon could have marketed it a little different, but they were fully transparent at the beginning, and it's more than enough for my needs. I don't think you should be looking at hybrid cameras for dedicated video cameras. If you're trying to make an argument that, well, the a7S III is a cinema camera, well, it's a cinema camera that takes photos, and it's still not even a full cinema camera, so we won't even get into that. But Canon camera, amazing, takes great shots. It has fantastic video quality, and it's a hybrid camera. Now that I've praised it, let me kind of rip into it a little bit, because there are some major design flaws in my opinion. Now, this camera has amazing video capabilities, but it doesn't have the capability of shooting redundant, which just, why? Why? Honestly, like, redundant recording for both photo and video is just essential for any professional, so why give us these professional settings and then make redundant recording impossible? Okay, internal redundant recording, not possible, but they also make it so you can't do internal recording and external recording redundantly. Canon, come on. That really can't be a feature that you just take away from this camera. My next thing is C-Log. Why C-Log 1? Why not C-Log 3? That way you can maximize dynamic range. I honestly, C-Log is great, but they couldn't introduce any other C-Log, like C-Log 2, C-Log 3, like, I would pay $100 for that upgrade like Panasonic did with the GH5 and V-Log. So I hope that comes out. I would pay $100 for that, just so I could get another 2 stops of dynamic range, that improved color for C-Log 3. So I hope that comes, but I don't understand why they didn't include that. Now, my last big gripe that I've noticed so far is the compressed H.265 files, IPB files. Yeah, right? Okay, yes. But the filing system for the 10-bit is just impossible to edit on my 16 gigabytes of RAM MacBook Pro. And honestly, it's been a nightmare for people who I know who have the $6,000 iMac Pro. So a frustrating thing is you are going to have to use proxies. Luckily, I have Final Cut, which I just plug in my footage and let it generate proxies, which can take anywhere from 40 minutes to 2 hours. I'll let it do that and do its thing, but that's not ideal, but it does make the workflow seamless. If you're trying to edit on just those H.265 files on any computer right now, you are going, good luck. Good luck to you. You are a saint with patience and just, or you're just insane. Because literally your computer will crash. If you try to do playback, it's going to be terrible, and you are going to notice freezing and lag, and it's going to be a nightmare. So I don't understand why Canon couldn't introduce a less compressed file for their 10-bit footage. 10-bit footage. I don't understand why they had to do so much compression on it that it's now adding 2 hours to my workflow. Like, come on, Canon. But other than that, those are just a few gripes that I have. Not terribly bad. I've heard if you're editing on an iPad Pro using Luminar Fusion, no, that's a photo program, isn't that? I can't remember, but the iPad, because of the OS, it's able to handle H.265 files just better. So people have been editing on that, but I prefer editing on my computer right now. Maybe I'll edit on the tablet down the road, but that's all I have for my gripes with this camera right now. There's a bunch of little things that I just will need to jot down as I go. I was filming also a wildlife review that should be coming out soon at the same time of doing this, and hopefully a lot more stuff is coming. So stay tuned. We're going to dive deep into this camera and some other gear, and there's going to be a lot of information for you. So if you are interested in hearing more about this, if you like the footage that I showed you, or you have any questions or anything, feel free to comment, subscribe, hit that like button. But with that all being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.